Hey everyone, welcome back to Notes to Self. My name is Melanie.
And I'm Corey.
And if you don't know who we are, we're both born and raised in a polygamous cult here in Utah, the Apostolic United Brethren, or more commonly known as the AUB. I was raised with four moms and 34 brothers and sisters.
And my father had 9 wives and 39 siblings, all running around the same house up in a compound in Pinesdale, Montana. So,
yep, my dad is the current prophet of the AUB. And so we are just talking about our experiences in the AUB and how we grew up. And today we're going to talk about the tell-all of Sister Wives. It's episode 1, part 1 of the tell-all. And this one was a doozy. Oh my gosh. We
from 1 on 4 in the beginning of this episode, or beginning of these seasons, to now 1 on 1. They don't even want to talk together within the same thing, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I think it's crazy that they can't even really talk to each other in the same room. But I mean, I do and I don't. I mean, I see why they can't, because half of them can't keep their story straight and the other half don't have anything to worry about because they feel like they tell the truth whenever they get in there, which is great.
Well, Cody couldn't handle the snark, so from the other wives.
Well, just look how angry
he would get angry. Yeah, he gets angry just with Snooki talking to him and Suki holding him accountable.
Snooki. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. This man has a lot of good anger issues. He could probably work on some therapy to get that. So once again, if you have not started your healing work, we would strongly encourage you to start that healing path, so that you deserve to be loved deeper. The people you love deserve to be loved deeper. So if you are a human with a human body, you have had trauma, and find whatever modality works for you and do those things, do those hard things of healing some of that. Because you can definitely see when you are triggered, that is an unhealed wound. And Suki triggers the crap out of Cody this entire episode, and
trying to hold him accountable to his own words that he has been saying. And he is a man that does not need to be held accountable and shouldn't have to be held accountable. She needs to hold the other women accountable who have left. So it's kind of cool to watch. So kind of going and explain that.
Yeah. Well, and most polygamous men don't feel the need to ever be held accountable. And that's because their callings, we just did a video about divine or sanctified marriages. Why do a lot of these polygamous men not feel like they need to be held accountable for anything? And it's because they're some of the most dangerous entitled men out there, and women, because they believe their calling is from God. And so therefore, if you're questioning them, you're questioning God, and you're questioning what God wants them to do. So there's so much of it going on throughout this episode. I feel like there's so much to cover. We're going to miss some stuff. We already know that we are, but we're going to try to cover this. I have like 3 pages of notes. One thing that I really wanted to point out before we get too deep into this episode is that one of the things that we are taught our entire lives, from coming from the AUB, coming from a polygamous cult, is that we are an elect few. Out of the billions and billions of people that have come onto the world, we are the elect few that are sent here with a higher purpose, a higher calling, a higher light and knowledge of what is the true way to get back to heaven and see God again. And we're the only ones out of billions of people who have this opportunity. And so therefore, if you fail at this, man, you're failing hard and you're falling forward hard, or hopefully falling forward. But in Cody's case, it seems like no. And so at the beginning of this entire series, he says love should be multiplied, not divided. And he's basically wanting to come out to the world to show them, look at this. This can be a lifestyle that can be lived. It can be, because he believed at the very beginning that he had a higher calling in this religion. He had a higher calling in the world than the average Joe Blow. Average guy on the street doesn't have the same light and knowledge that this man has been given. And he has the highest level of ability to get back to God in a way.
And he was going to show that to us. They were going to show the steps on doing that. So,
and yet through this entire episode, he breaks it down step by step of why he was not made for that calling, why he simply couldn't live up to the calling of what he believed he was called to do.
Well, Suki is Suki, right?
Yeah.
Suki is holding him accountable, and in his belief system, there's only one person
Yep.
he on this earth that he should be held accountable to, and that person is holding him accountable on abandonment. But he doesn't know the whole story. If he knew the whole story, but
He's
Cody
talking
is
about
going,
the polygamous church leader.
he's going to be a bigger person and not tell the whole story to the world because he's friends with Mary. So
yeah.
but he does not believe that what he's being held accountable for he actually is, and neither does Robin. So
Right.
and none of us have the right to hold them accountable for anything. So if you want to hold people accountable, you hold the people accountable who left this marriage, this divine marriage. So
Right. Well, and so I'm going to kind of jump around a little bit because there's things that were said at the end of the episode that kind of had relevancy at the beginning of the episode. One of the things that, now I just lost my train of thought because I saw your smirk. No, it's okay. Is that he talks about Janelle at the end of the episode says she thinks that Cody might be running interference for Robin so that he made himself look more villainous so that he could cover for Robin. And
at the beginning of this, he says, "What can I do to protect you?"
And so they're in the car and they're getting ready to leave. And he looks at Robin and he says, "What can I do to protect you from this?" Because he says to her, are you looking forward to this? And she says, "No, I'd rather have a root canal." And he's like, "What can I do to protect you from this?" And she says, "Nothing, God will protect me." And this goes right back to what I was just saying about people who believe that they are divinely called to live this way so they don't have to account to anyone but God. And so when she says that, "No, God will protect me from this," it really it struck me so odd. And the fact that he would say to her, "Is there anything I can do to protect you from this?" I fully 100% believe is that Janelle's correct. He is making himself more villainous to protect Robin and her culpability in whatever's happened in this family.
Well, and so that she doesn't have to be held accountable for what she has done over the seasons.
Right.
But he wants the other wives who have left this divine marriage to be held accountable for why they have left.
I know.
And so I'm not going to tell you why, but I'll tell you why. So I'll break it down why Mary didn't deserve to be in this marriage, or the other wives have all abandoned this divine marriage. So
well, and then he goes, and we'll have a prayer before we get going. So I find it interesting that I understand taking a fall in life and still wanting to be connected to a source. I understand that completely. I just feel like there may be a tinge of self-righteousness coming off with this of, we don't have to account to Suki. We don't have to account to the world. We're doing these tell-alls because it's paying our mortgage. That's why we're doing it. But we really don't owe you peasants, you small people, any explanation as to why we do what we do. We owe it to God, and that's it.
And he'll protect us.
Exactly.
From you.
Exactly. And so that is one of the superior ways that we were taught our entire lives, that we didn't owe anyone on this earth anything because everything was owed to God. And that was it. That's all. So I just thought that was really interesting. Another thing that I really struggled with in this scene is, obviously it's been talked about all over line, of Cody licking the picture. We paused this and talked about it because we had two different perspectives from this. When you're a child, I know a lot of people know that my dad is the prophet now. And so I always grew up with a very strict father in a lot of ways, and the things that he taught me. He always really tried to live. He thought he lived by what he preached, but he didn't always do that. But sexualization, when Cody says and Mary says, we agreed at the beginning that we were not going to talk about sex and sexual relationships in these marriages. I grew up in a very house that really didn't, my dad did not talk about, my parents did not talk about sex. I never saw my dad in his pajamas hardly, because it was just not something that we did. Go ahead.
No, those were considered carnal or earthly.
Urges.
You have urges that you don't talk about those. We were above them, and you were taught not to even think about that kind of stuff. You were above those carnal urges. And then there's hypocrisy that you see later on in life where, okay, well, we were being taught one way, and then sometimes a parent would say something or do something that was against the way they taught you. Mm-hmm. And then when we became adults and did carnal things, we were shamed about it.
Well, even when we were teenagers and we did anything, like you see Cody throughout the years shame his children mm-hmm. about kissing other people, about doing any physical intimacy. And yet now all of a sudden it feels like the last couple of things that we've seen, he's sexualizing Robin and she's sexualizing him. You know, he's on a horse and she's saying, rawr, and just little things that the rest of the world might not look at as a very big deal. But in this religion, that is stepping over the line of what we were taught growing up.
So it looks like hypocrisy. It really is.
It's extreme hypocrisy. Right.
Based on the way he was raising his children, the way that they were talking about their marriages to what they're doing now, which they're now being normal. They're showing that they're carnal human beings, and yet then they're still talking about the divinity of their marriage.
Right. Well, they're no longer a higher calling. They're no longer a couple that lives a higher calling. And so does that mean that they can talk about the carnal urges and all of the things that regular Joe Blow people on the street do because you don't have as great of light knowledge about how to get back to God as they do? So it feels very hypocritical to me. Mm-hmm. I have really struggled with a lot of the way that he's like, oh yeah, Robin's so sexy and Robin's so whatever things he says and does. But that licking picture or licking like, oh, she looks so yummy. That was one step beyond anything that I was so uncomfortable with that just as a woman, because it felt like, you know, here's this man who says he's going to respect and treat the women in his life with respect, his daughters. What would he do if some boy did that with a picture of one of his daughters? I mean, the Cody that we knew at the beginning of the show would act completely different about that than the Cody that we know now. I feel like the Cody that we know now would probably high five the guy and punch him in the shoulder and be like, oh, good job, buddy. Yeah, look, my daughter. And yet the daughter, I mean, that sounded worse than I meant it to sound, but the Cody at the beginning of the show would be like, whoa, no, that's not what we're doing, you know. And then he would sit down and talk to them about how they swap DNA when they kiss, you know. And so it's really mind blowing to me to see where he's come from, because his main goal was to get out there and show the world that he had this greater light and knowledge about spiritual matters. And now he's turned the show from spiritual matters or, you know, the lifestyle that they've gotten, and he's turned it into trash. Like the common, you know what I mean? The common, you could go get this kind of behavior off of any other. So yeah, I'm a little bit, I was really taken back by that. I was offended by it, to be quite honest, because I mean, Corey and I are very affectionate in our relationship, but we've never professed not to be.
Yeah.
And so we've never raised our children. Like we have had a very open relationship. We kiss a lot in front of our kids. We touch a lot in front of our kids. We wanted our kids to see how a healthy relationship, but that is not what Cody Brown and his wives have done on TV for the last 19 seasons. And so now when he does it, the level of hypocrisy feels like it's in the umpth degree. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because he's teaching one thing and doing another.
Right.
Robin saying one thing and doing another. And that's where the frustration of the hypocrisy comes from. And probably the kids are the ones that see it the most. Those were the ones that basically were calling it out at the beginning and being frustrated at the beginning because they were being taught one thing and then watching this behavior as he's dating and getting married and doing it completely different, hypocrisy, and then they're going, wait a minute, adults are to be respected,
right?
Robin's to be respected, and
women are to be respected. Yeah. You know, women are considered objects in the AUB, but they're also sacred objects that you respect to some degree. What they do is they preach that, but they don't do that.
Yeah, because he doesn't respect the first three wives. And that's what I loved when Christine brought that up. Well, that is from her upbringing.
Yeah.
A woman, yes, he can respect that she cooks a meal for him. She can respect that she's raising the children and have children. She can respect things that she does, but her as a person, there's no need to respect her as a person.
Right. You respect the position of what a woman is, a mother, is a patriarch or a matriarch. You respect that position, but you don't necessarily have to respect that person, because,
her job, if she's doing her job great, I respect her position in doing that job right, but her as a person, there's no need. I'm the man of that, so there's no need. And that is a teaching and training. So she was like, well, I don't think he had to respect me even. And so and
I want to get more into that,
interesting,
because as we get over to that part of it, because I want to explain like the differences and how they were raised. One of the things I feel like at the beginning of the show, he came in trying to show how, and if you haven't watched this, we just did a video on sanctified and sexualized relationships and romanticized. How do we romanticize these kind of relationships and how do they fit into polygamy? So we just did that video if you haven't seen that. But at the beginning of this series, he wanted to show how he had these sanctified marriages. And now I feel like he's turned it into a sexualized marriage, and it's just brought down the quality, I feel like, of he's brought down the quality of his character throughout the last couple of years, but this just takes it to a different level that it feels really uncomfortable.
I think he's showing his character. They're showing their character, to be honest, that wasn't always shown at the beginning. That, well, we're not going to talk about that. We're not going to do that. We're not going to show that. But as things come about, as things get hard in their relationships and marriages, his true character is coming out. So I don't think he's devolved in his character. I just think it's starting to come out now.
Right. Well, and I find it interesting too, because Suki sits them all down. She's starting to have the one-on-ones with them, and she's asking them. I just think first we go through, like, how does Janelle feel about doing the one-on-ones? How does Christine feel about it? I think their answers were so interesting, because Mary's like, I don't care about the one-on-one. I tell the truth when I'm talking. I don't have to remember things. And Janelle's like, I really just like Suki. She's so friendly. It's hard to remember that we're not just two girlfriends sitting on a couch. And then, and so I still have to be protect. Like, you still have to guard what you say. And that's another reason why I say I don't feel like this family really tried to lie, but they did try to guard what they said to some degree. I feel that way when we're talking about things. I still want to be careful as to still be respectful, but at the same time, still be truthful about what we're saying. And then Christine comes back and she's like, I don't want to talk about this. Like, I'm done talking about Cody. I've been away from him for 4 years and I'm embarrassed and ashamed about this, because this is not how I want to live.
This is not who I am.
Right. And then you've got Cody and Robin, who do not want to do the tell-all, and Robin to the point where she doesn't even want to watch the clips. So I thought that was interesting, their different takes on what they're about to go experience. It cracked me up, just because you can see who doesn't want to, like, just pay me my paycheck so I can pay my mortgage. I don't want to entertain you people. And that's the feeling that I get from Cody and Robin. Well, especially from Robin. She's so dismissive. She doesn't want to be bothered with this interview, because they don't want to be called out for some of the stuff that they're doing.
They don't want to be accountable.
Accountable for anything,
for things that they've said in the past or behaviors or anything like that. And so when you bring up stuff like the seed planting or the stuff like that, a righteous woman within the queen and a goddess would not devolve herself to doing that kind of stuff. She does the God's work. She does the Lord's work. So
she doesn't need to be bothered.
How can you even accuse me of these things? Those are women that have broken away from God's divine marriage, and they're beneath her. So and she's not going to be held accountable. Neither of them want to be held accountable for anything.
Right.
It's these women who have separated themselves from this holy unity that's going to make it into heaven.
Yep.
They've separated it. It's their loss. We're a divine couple climbing up into the heavens.
I think it's so crazy. So Suzuki asks them all, what movie would you be? If you could describe your life right now, what movie would you be? And I love that Janelle said that she would be Fried Green Tomatoes. I love that show, Tawanda, and so I thought it was perfect for Janelle. And then I love that Christine said Everything Everywhere All at Once. Great movie. I loved that one. Life feels like that for us sometimes too. And then also Mary was like Wild. That another great one. And then Cody comes in with like, oh, I'll be Patrick Swayze in Point Break. And
That's who I am.
I know, right? And then he comes back and he quotes another Batman movie. And he's like, oh, if you live long enough, you can live long enough to no longer be the hero. You'll be the villain. And it's just one more way. I think it's ironic that he sits there and says all the time, these women complain about a victim. Janelle's got a victim card and she plays it all the time. And yet every one of his answers are so victim-y. It's.
Well, I thought he thought that she said, what movie star do you look like? Oh, yeah, Patrick Swayze in Point Break.
He doesn't.
Oh, what about my life? Oh, let me think deeper into that one. Yes, if you live long enough, if you don't die a hero, you get to be the villain like me. So.
Right. Well, and then I think find it interesting that they didn't have one for Robin. I'm sure it's something Robin didn't answer, didn't want to be answered because she didn't need to be bothered with it. Because again, this is beneath her. She just needs TLC's paycheck. She doesn't need to actually do or answer any of the work. I think it's interesting that Cody says this. It's hard to be accountable for things that you're saying in the passion and the heat of the moment. And I agree with him on that. He was hurt. He's been hurt for the last couple of years. And he's made comments that maybe have come back to bite him in the butt. And he's eaten a lot of crow for that. And so now I feel like this is the most accountable we've seen him on any, because he's trying to be accountable. He's just not always there. But I feel like he's trying to use different words this time to be like, oh yeah, no, I said things in the heat of the passion and the moment of being upset.
Well, what movie do you think her life is about? Or if she had answered that question, I think it would be a Batman movie too. She'd probably be Poison Ivy or something like that. But
I don't know. I haven't even thought.
Yeah,
you're the movie buff in this situation. I don't watch movies, so
in the notes, tell us some movies that would be
in the comments.
Yeah, comments that you think would be good for her life. So
one of the things too that she says, so how is your life? What is going on? And Cody's like, well, I feel like I have 5 different iterations of truth, and then I pick one. And she goes, isn't that the truth right there? Because that is how polygamy works. When you've got one husband and 4 different wives, everybody sees things completely different. And everyone's seeing their experience with this completely different. And they can all be in the same room, have the exact same thing happen, and they all walk away with different experiences of it. And so I thought that was really interesting to hear his perspective on that, because that was probably one of the more honest things I've heard him say too. And I love that Christine comes right out of the gate saying, no, if you come into polygamy and you have a soulmate, that's going to damage your marriages. And he wants to admit whether he loves these women or whether he didn't love these women. Robin came swinging on episode 2, right out of the gate saying, Cody's my soulmate. She was not wasting any time in her long game with that. And so Christine calls that out in this episode, which I thought was really good. Go ahead.
Well, just in polygamy, and I think Suki says that, well, don't you have to have 4 individual marriages that are equal and to make it work? Because I feel like that's probably what they were trying to show, that they were all equal, they're all this, but he hasn't. He's elevated one marriage over the rest,
right?
And they're admitting that now. He's trying to bring up those other marriages to the elevation of his and Robin's marriage, so his divine marriage. So.
Which, I mean, how hurtful can you possibly be by saying stuff like this? Janelle did say something that he's just getting on and he's saying really cruel things, and he knows he's purposeful. I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, Robin's so manipulative. Robin's, Cody's, they're purposeful. Robin's very purposeful in what she does. Now, whether that means that it's a form of manipulation, it's not a form of manipulation. She's very purposeful in everything that she says on these episodes and everything that she does. I think it was when she's very careful about how she answers her questions. So Suki says to her, do you feel like Cody's rewriting the past because of your divine love? He was trying to bring everybody up to your divine love. And Robin's very careful about how she answers this. She does say that she believes Cody was rewriting the past, but because that's the point that he sees it from. So she's very careful in how she says these things, which is great. Like that is, but in this situation, it can be very manipulative. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, I just think she is trying, the way she's answering these questions is from that higher sister wife, that higher loves. She's trying to show that she is a godly woman, the best of the sister wives. These are friends that are being mean to each other, type things like that. And I'm the best sister wife because I still care about them, even all the mean things that they've said about me or things that have. I'm not the villain. Cody, take over. You're the villain now. So.
Right. Right. Well, and so when Cody says, so am I not supposed to fall in love? In polygamy, not everybody falls in love, to be totally honest. They really don't. A lot of times the marriages are marriages of convenience, duty, responsibility. In the AUB, yes, there's not as many arranged marriages, if any arranged marriages. Sometimes there's people who get together and are like, here, you can have my daughter, I'll take your daughter, that type of thing. So it does happen.
Oh, yeah.
It does. And so, but Cody's over here saying, so was I not supposed to fall in love in polygamy? When he asks stupid questions like this, it's like, dude, you're the one who wanted to go on national television to show that you had a higher calling and that you had the ability to live a higher law that God wanted you to live. And now you're asking stupid questions like, was I not supposed to fall in love? That just shows his inability to live this higher calling or this higher, because he can't love all of his wives. So he can only love Robin. He can only fall in love like this with one. And so he's showing his limited capability of actually living this higher law that he thought he was called to live. Well, does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I feel like in the beginning, he was claiming he was in love with all four wives equally.
Right.
And now he's going, no, I was definitely in love with one more than the other ones. And sue me for what I was trying to sell you before.
Right. And but then okay, so now he's felt this divine love that he didn't know existed before. Okay, you're incapable of creating that in these other marriages. So right there, you say that you're incapable of living this higher law that God called you to live because you're incapable of creating that in each one of your relationships. And so
I don't even think incapable. I think he didn't want.
Well, right. So that's what I'm saying through this whole episode. What he's doing is, nope, I wasn't really meant to do this. Nope, God really didn't want me to be one of his chosen people. And so he's just constantly admitting through this entire episode that he's not one of God's chosen people, that he wanted to go out and show the world that he was.
But I don't think he's even admitting that. I'm thinking more along the lines that he believes that he was the only one. Him and Robin were setting an example, and these women
decided not to lift themselves up.
They and well, do you need self-respect? They don't have. They shouldn't have self-respect. They should just cling to my righteousness, and they should have just hung in there and taken the shit. And since they chose not to, then yeah, I'll be mean to them. And they chose out because we're going to heaven.
Right.
So
Well, and then Robin comes on and she's like, I know he did love his wives, and that was an aphrodisiac for me. So once again, they're both making comments that are sexualizing their relationship, which just again shows that they're not living with a sanctified marriages, they're living with sexualized marriage. And go ahead.
Well, because I don't think that that was a taboo within the other 3 marriages. That's something that
Right.
I don't know, he didn't want to sexualize. They all had an agreement at the beginning, like Mary said, that they weren't going to sexualize their marriages. They weren't going to do that. That was not good within the religion that we grew up in.
Right.
You had to have a sanctified marriage, this holy marriage. And
this is going to be a long episode. We have so much to say. No, it's good. We both have so much to say about it because we're going to have to make some more smaller videos to go deeper into some of these subjects because that's why it's taken us a day and a half to make this video is because we've watched it and talked about it and watched it and talked about it. One of the things that Suki says is, or that Cody says is you can't blame his other marriages for failing because of his relationship with Robin. I highly disagree with that comment. I don't think that that's true at all. But one of the things that Suki says is, where did I write that down? What about your relationship with Robin worked? Like, why is your relationship with Robin this divine relationship? And she talks about, I wrote this is one of the very first things I wanted to talk about. So I put it on page 1. He starts to talk about why he loved Robin at a little bit deeper of a level. And he says, because she communicates with me, she loves me, and she respects herself. And Suki inserts, well, and she negotiates. And you guys negotiate. And I thought it was hilarious when Suki said that because is it really negotiations or is it Robin throwing her little 2 cents and getting what she wants? But she calls it negotiation. Cody calls it, my idea, but it's not, but it's really Robin controlling a scenario or a situation.
Because he respects her and he, more than that, worships her. That one of the sayings in here is, I worship. He does. He worships Robin above and respected her opinion.
Right.
He even says that at the beginning of it, she could have had any family and she chose ours.
Yeah.
This was the first relationship he probably had to work to get.
Well, and this goes back to what we've said in a couple other episodes, that he believes he was better than these women. He believes he was way better than Christine. He, maybe he wasn't better than Mary, but he eventually became better than Mary. But he didn't know if he was better than Robin because Robin had other choices. So all of a sudden that made him question his self-respect or his worthiness, he didn't have to question because these other women were falling at his feet wanting to marry him. And so when he talks about self-respect, we might make a video a little bit longer about this. I really wanted to point this out because that was really important to him. And this is really important to a lot of men, not necessarily just in polygamy, but a lot of men in general. If a woman respects herself, if she holds herself in a higher vibration, that she is, that she's not able to be walked on, she's not able to be talked down to or talked. And so one of the things he points out was Suki starts asking these women, did Cody respect you? Do you respect yourself? And their answers were kind of sad to me. And I think that's really sad because when she asks Christine says, she sits there for a second. She goes, I don't know that he thought he needed to respect me or even had any reason to respect me. And that broke my heart for her because for her, that wasn't a question that she ever asked herself. And based upon how she was raised, she is the only one that was really born and raised in polygamy. And so you can see that it starts right at birth that these women are taught to have, I was taught to have zero self-respect because you are an item to be owned by this man. You are an item to be checked by this man. And so it's sad because she didn't, the thought of him respecting her never really crossed her mind. And that he didn't come in and insert himself into their lives. Their entire lives changed around him when he got there. And we're going to do a deeper video because there's so much more around this subject that we can talk about. And then Mary says that, yeah, he respected her, but not always. And she didn't respect herself always. And let me go back to Christine. When Christine said when she finally started to respect herself is when she left, because she went, I deserve better than this. I deserve more than this. And that's one of the things that pissed Cody off the most about it, is he was used to her just being under his shoe, the dust under her shoe. Cooked him a good meal ever so often.
Yeah, the child, taking care of the children, doing things like that. That was her position within there, and she was lucky to be part of his family,
right? And she tried to remove herself from her position in the family and wanted something more, wanted something more that she saw Robin getting. And he's like, yeah, no, that's not what we agreed upon. You are dirt beneath my feet, and that's where you'll stay. And so then Mary was like, yeah, I'm sure he respected Mary at the beginning. And then when you start to lose self-respect for yourself, your partner can start to, that
disrespect you.
Exactly. And then Janelle was just like, she wasn't sure if Cody ever really respected her. I think to some degree, Cody did respect her as an intellectual to some degree, which is another reason why I think it was a little bit harder for him to have that relationship end. But I loved it when Janelle said, if I would have taken the time to date and court Cody longer, I probably would not have married him. And that is the key right there, because a lot of women are that way. That if they would have taken the time out to actually get to know him, then they probably would not have ended up staying in that relationship or getting married in the first place.
She was talking about Robin and him courted for a year, right? And if she
10
had
months, I think it was 10
if she
months.
had that much time, she probably would have never married him.
Right.
She would have got to know him. But then they make this commitment over an altar, and they feel like they're required to honor that commitment that they've made in front of God.
Right.
And it's hard to basically speak to your God and say, yeah, I'm no longer keeping that commitment. And yeah, Cody's frustrated that they've all now said, yeah, that commitment in front of God, I'm done with it. It's gone.
Yeah.
Well, and then Mary's went so far to have it undone in front of supposedly God. So
right. Well, and of course, then we didn't get an answer from Robin. Do you think Cody respects you? We didn't get an answer from her. All we got from her was he was trying to elevate the other women up to the level that he believed that their relationship was like. What a snotty thing to say. Arrogant. Yeah.
Queen and priestess, knowing. I find it interesting when the only kind of time she looked up and looked at the thing was when Janelle called her his sacred cow.
Her facial expressions
she kind of just
were killing me.
Yeah, she's like, talking. Oh my gosh. And it was not even a smile. Well, it was a smile of, oh, that's kind of funny. But I am in the belief system. I am the sacred one. Right. I am the celestial wife. Great. She recognizes my leadership position within this family. And yes, she did call it the sacred cow, but she got that sacred in there, and she is the head of that divine family now.
Yeah. I was really disgusted. This entire tell-all was really, it's all about Cody. Well, Christine wasn't making me happy, because Christine's like, my entire life was wrapped around him. Well, she wasn't making me happy. And every answer was all about him and what his needs were and what he wants. And that really shows you just the quality of men that typically come out of this religion. It is all about them. But if you notice, Robin did not have anything to say about this. It was blank. I literally don't have an answer for her because she didn't say anything.
Well, and Christine made the carnal mistake. The reason that they're because she communicated to him. His big thing is he communicated with Robin, and yet he won't let any of these other women communicate to him.
He shuts him down. No. Stop. I'm going to stop you right there.
Because what she's saying, well, I'm not happy in this marriage. Well, then
you fix it.
Yeah, you need to fix it.
If you're not going to lift yourself up to where I am, then that sucks to be you. You're in the bottom. Fix yourself.
So of course he's not happy in the marriage with Christine because she's complaining that she's not happy in the marriage. So he can't be happy in that marriage because she wants him to hold some sort of responsibility of doing something, or and he's not to be held responsible. And this is their core belief system. He's not to be held responsible by a lower wife.
Yeah.
He will be held responsible by his priesthood leaders or by God. And he does not need to answer to what's below him. He needs to only answer to what's above him. And the people that are calling him out above him just don't know all the truth.
Right.
So, or they wouldn't call him out. So.
Well, and Janelle says that the way he talks about them publicly is cruel. And I agree. I think the way he talks about their relationships is cruel. The way he talks about his and Robin's relationship is he tries to talk about that with respect. If he gave even these women the 1/10 of the respect that he tries to give Robin, I think their relationships would be completely different. Yeah. But he's so cruel and dismissive to these other women.
Well, she said that he tries to hit them.
Janelle makes the comment that he attacks each wife and where it hurts her the most.
So hers was finance, I think.
Yeah.
So,
and it just shows his level of cruelty. And yet this is so typical for polygamous men to be this cruel. You just don't see it all the time because it's masked and disguised in spiritual,
But it's turnaround is fair play. So when it hits into, I love that they're coming around and going ego and failure in marriage and abandonment. This is awesome. These are all things that are these are the exact words that are going to hit Cody hard too. So he doesn't want to be known as he never abandoned these women. They cut themselves loose from his spiritual rocket.
Well, all right. So. Right. He was shooting the star. Yeah. Well, and I think it's interesting. I love watching all their responses when Suki's like, yeah, I was just trying to raise your relationship up. And just Christine's like, when he was never at my house because he was always at Robin's house. And Chanel's like, well, he probably should have communicated that if that's what he was trying to do. And Mary's just like, yeah, we're not Robin. I don't want to be Robin. I'm Mary. I don't want to be Robin. And so I think that's I love how none of them went, oh, maybe I should have tried harder. Maybe I should have tried to be more like Robin is. They just mocked it and made fun of it, which was amazing to see.
Well, and because at the beginning, I don't think he had to. He was showing them what a true marriage looked like, and it was their responsibility to learn and to mold their marriages with him, worship him, not whatever it was that he had to bring their marriages up. And it's mostly to follow him as he's the leader of the family, and they need to follow him. And if they choose not to follow, he's showing them he doesn't have to be involved in those little marriages. It's their job to create their marriages.
But Mary said it perfect when Suki was like, can you have something different in each marriage but still have it equal? And Mary's comment back was perfect. No, only if he accepts Mary for Mary, Christine for Christine, because we're not Robin. We don't want to be Robin. And so I really appreciated Mary's answer because yes, you should. These are 4 individual relationships in the umbrella of polygamous family. And really, it shows Cody's inability to be able to navigate this lifestyle. That's really what I take away from all of this. Cody doesn't take that away, but that's what I take away is its inability to navigate this lifestyle.
I don't know if he even knows what respect. She brought up that, well, hey, you kind of admitted you don't respect these other wives, or you in layers. Don't you think they felt that? And he worships one wife, but he doesn't know what respect is. He doesn't have that capability or ability to respect.
Well, he loves to demand something that he doesn't even understand.
Yeah.
He demands respect from his kids or his family, but he doesn't even understand respect. He doesn't know how to give respect to. And so it's tragic, really, if you watch him. Okay, so then Suki comes up to him. This video is going to be forever long, but no, it's good. No, I love it. We just have so many deep ways to go in. I'm trying to be time conscious too, but I think we'll make a couple of other videos, like I've said already. Suki comes up to Mary and she's like, so you did it. You got your spiritual release from him. And the word came up that he hates, that he feels so offended by, which is abandonment. And Cody comes up with the phrase contemptuous enemies, that he's got contemptuous enemies now. And so is Mary just being contemptuous towards him because she decided, Mary made the comment that he did not want her to go get the spiritual release. And then Janelle makes the comment, which I loved Janelle's comment when she says, here he is telling the whole world he can't go get these releases. He can't go get these divorces. He can't leave his wives. And yet then on the flip side, he's like, I don't believe in that church anymore. So which one is it, buddy? If you don't believe in the church anymore, why can't you show these women enough respect to say, I don't want to be in that relationship with him anymore? Instead, I'm just going to treat you like complete shit for 10 years until you decide to leave. And so this is what we've said in a couple of other videos. He's full of shit when he says he cannot leave these women. He absolutely can, especially when he doesn't even believe in the church anymore. He doesn't believe in the church's authority. He doesn't believe in. And so which one is it? Is it, wait, you don't believe in it anymore, and therefore you can just walk away from your wives? You just don't want to be the jerk who does it? What do you think?
So on the topic of abandonment, Cody does not feel like that he's abandoned Mary. In fact, he feels it's expected of the men within the faith to emotionally step out and look for other wives to bring in to the family. The other wives are supposed to step out or look for other wives to bring in the family. But Mary emotionally, in his belief system, stepped out of their marriage, breaking the covenant. But he doesn't want to bring that up because there are instances where he has admitted that he has emotionally stepped out of the marriage, looked at a possible married woman for too long, things like that. So he doesn't want to be held accountable, but he's not going to be held accountable because him as a priesthood leader, it's okay for him as long as he doesn't act upon it. But it's not okay for a woman to emotionally step out of a marriage, even if she doesn't physically act upon it. So that's all I was trying to come about. And it just gets jumbled in my mind. So,
yeah.
So,
okay. No, you're good.
That's what I wanted to say.
Yep. So when they're talking about the abandonment, I think it's interesting when Cody says he was afraid of being honest with Mary because he was afraid of what she would do, which I feel like was really unfair for him to say that. On a whole bunch of different levels, I thought it was unfair. But then when Christine comes on and she says, we walked on eggshells around Mary, we never knew what we were going to get. This is also very common in polygamy. You're going to get that one wife that you don't know what to expect. Is she going to come into the house happy? Is she going to come into the house upset? And so there are a lot of women that you do walk around on eggshells when you're around them. And they don't always see that they're doing it. Or there might be an issue between her and the husband, and she's projecting that onto other people around her. I don't know. I thought it was funny when Janelle answered the question. Janelle just laughed. She was like, oh, okay, what do you think she's going to do? Like, he's a grown adult. What can she do? I loved the way Janelle acted through this entire episode. Janelle has no more shits to give, and it's amazing. I love it. She's very, I feel like Cody and Robin are very dismissive, and they're just like, we don't want to be bothered with you. Where Janelle is just very much like, yeah, I don't give a shit. Whatever. Let's just laugh about this. Let's all have a good. And so then also Christine said that she loved that Mary got a release on abandonment. The only thing, Robin refused to answer the question yet again. She refused to answer it on abandonment, but Suki asked her, does this come up? Are people able to get releases on abandonment? And no, they're not very common. It's not very common. I wish that it was more common because it happens way too often. And but it's not very common. You read something on that abandonment is not one of the sins or one of the crimes or one of the whatever, discretions that you can get a release on, it has to be something like adultery or murder, or what were some of the other ones?
Yeah. If he abandoned families and just didn't want, yes, but it's usually on abandonment when somebody is leaving. When they're leaving the faith, like Cody has left the faith. So, and he could have probably argued it out, told his side of the story, and they wouldn't have given that release.
Right.
But he didn't want to. So,
yeah. And so I thought it was really interesting that Robin didn't want to chime in on that, because if she was honest, she would see that he abandoned Mary as well. Because I mean, all of us saw it. Yeah, I loved how Christine came back and she was like, "It's the truth. This is what he did." And you see that a lot in polygamy. You see, and this is another kind of issue I feel like maybe we could make a whole separate video on.
Well, and he made the statement too that he was working things out with Janelle for the children. And that's laughable. That's just, he was against the children. She chose to leave because he was making a stand against his adult children. And because they were upset with the way he was treating their mother. So,
right. And so for him to be afraid of Mary, of what she was going to do. And, then
he was afraid of Mary, that she was going to take it to his priesthood leaders and get him on something like that, abandonment. So that's what he was afraid of. And she did exactly what he was afraid of. So.
Right. Well, and then he's like, so then they start talking about the divorce, the legal divorce, and letting Robin have the legal divorce. And he makes a comment about he bought her a ring, took her home, they had sex. I love the way that Mary goes back and she's like, I don't remember. That was 10 years ago. Yep. Sex with Cody is so memorable. She does not remember at all. And so I thought that was awesome that she said that. But I appreciate too where Mary's coming from with this, because she feels like it's crude to talk about these, because they all made an agreement that they weren't going to be speaking about intimacy and sexual relations on the show. And then now he's taking it to that point and Mary's not going to do it. And I really appreciate that about Mary, that she's going to still hold that standard of, I don't want to talk about intimacy relations with him. We made that agreement, and it's crude to talk about that publicly. That's how I was raised. That's what I was taught. I agree with Mary.
And she's not going to tell that he was just sitting in the bed licking the phone. So, as their sexual fantasies.
Oh my gosh, that's so bad. Okay. I know. See, I meant to do a whole thing around the women and their self-respect and why the way that they were raised, and I got sidetracked and didn't do that. We'll make a video on that one. So then they're talking about it, and Suki's asking them, do you feel like, what was the intent of the legal divorce? And Mary, I think it's funny because we said when we very first started talking about Sister Wives, this is the first season we've watched from start to finish. And then of course gave our commentary on it. My opinion was that was a long game on Robin's end. She went into this family with the intention of getting that legal divorce, and she played her cards right to the point where she was able to receive that legal divorce. I think it's funny because Janelle says she doesn't think that Cody is sophisticated enough to scheme a plan like that. So she doesn't say that Robin's not guilty. She just says that she doesn't believe that Cody's sophisticated enough to come up with the idea of, oh, let's get Robin to be my legal wife. And Christine comes up with, yep, there was seed planting all the way along. Here's what happened. This is what I believe happened. Robin laid all these seeds, which I agree with Christine. I think that this is what Robin had intended to do too. I love it because Mary comes back without saying, yes, she agrees. She comes back with saying, well, Christine must have a reason for feeling that way. So she doesn't come out and say that she doesn't believe that that was Robin's intent either.
And Robin doesn't even deny it. Robin says, I don't remember that. There's a lot that Robin doesn't remember, even with back episodes being played. That's why I don't think she looks at these back episodes being played where she has to be held accountable. She doesn't even say, she just says, I don't remember saying that. And then she gives us incident, but it does happen within there. And Wynn and his wife did that but she's not denying.
Right.
So
Yeah, Cody's dad, apparently, we don't know anything about that. I'm not familiar with Cody's family. Very little. I know very little about them. If Wynn did do that, I have no idea. I've gotten a ton of questions in my comment section about that. I really don't know. I personally don't know anyone who has ever divorced their wife, divorced a legal wife and married another wife to adopt her children. I personally have never heard of that. I'm sure it happens. I just don't know about it. And then Christine says the same thing. She doesn't know. And then Robin's like, no, I don't even ever remember talking about this. So I just think it's funny.
But it does happen.
But it does. Yeah. So I thought that was just interesting, the way that she backpedals herself all the time. And I love that, like, we're not Sister Wives experts by any means. We just talk about what we see, why we believe that happens because of the culture that we grew up in. But you guys are the internet sleuths that are out there going, no, she lied here, she lied here, she lied here. And I think it's hilarious when I see these like side by side pictures of she said this and then this time she said this. That is not something that we will ever try to master, because we just don't care enough about it. I mean, we like watching the show and then talking about the culture behind it, but I don't really care that much about Robin or what she does or what she lies about. So I think it's funny. Okay, so I actually put this in the wrong spot. When the church, so Suki does ask Robin, I want to go back to this. Does the church normally give releases based on abandonment? And Robin is very careful about what she says. Again, I think she's very purposeful about the words that she uses. And she says, no, they don't. They gave Mary a release based on what Mary said to them, without calling Mary a liar, without calling Mary she made up a story, without saying any of that. She was very careful about the words that she used, as to not offend Mary and probably not to offend Cody. But it is very true. They don't give releases very often on abandonment. It is happening more and more now that my dad is the prophet. There has been a lot more releases based on abandonment, because there are a lot of, I'm sorry, dirty men out there that don't care about their families. Cody is not an exception. Cody's behavior on this show and the way that he treats these women is not the exception to the rule. This is how the majority of these men treat these women. This is how and they don't see it. That's the sad part. Cody has 19 seasons of footage. He could go back and watch his jackassery and he really still doesn't see it. And so there's a lot of more releases that are happening because people are becoming more emotionally and consciously aware, and women are standing up saying, yeah, I don't want to be treated like this anymore. And these men are they are butt wounded about it.
So if anything, that's one of the things that Sister Wives has brought out. I think those people within the AUB, a lot more of the women are getting some self-respect.
Right.
And asking to be respected within these families, and are leaving.
They are.
AUB has lost a lot of members over the last couple of years. So.
Right. And one of the big ones is unrighteous dominion, which is a different word for saying abusive, physically, emotionally, spiritually, whatever abuse they want to categorize under this unrighteous dominion. But yeah, abandonment is, and then it goes right back to what Janelle said, that it's ego and failure. He's a failure as a polygamist. And when I loved it when Suki asked Robin, do you feel like Cody's a failure at polygamy? And she's like, we're all failures. All of us have failed. We've all done, we've all sat and crap talked each other. We've all gotten ourselves in this position where we are all failures. And when it comes down to it, he's the head of the family. He's the nucleus of the family. He's the nuclei. This was his show to show everybody how successful this religion can be. And he failed. And now his ego is bruised because of it. And a lot of men in this religion have the same ego, ginormous egos, because they're so used to being the center focal point of everything. And then all of a sudden these women start to gain self-respect. Janelle says, I don't have a victim card that I like to play. I wanted my boundaries to be respected. I wanted to be respected. And when I requested that, he calls that being victimy. That's not being victimy. That's called having boundaries. And then same with Christine. She started getting self-respect, picks up and leaves. She's not going to sit around and tolerate this anymore. And Mary was the one who took the longest to get there. And I think a lot, in my opinion, I could be totally wrong, Mary took longer to get there. I think because of the catfishing thing, she had a lot of guilt. She was working through a lot of shame. She was working through. And so it took her a little bit longer to get to that self-respect level that I feel like Christine got to and went, get out. And Janelle went, I don't think Janelle necessarily kicked him out. She just laughed him out. She just like, yeah, okay, buddy. Okay. Yeah. And
we're not even in the same universe.
Yeah. When she says, oh, honey, we're not even in the same universe. Oh my gosh. I cracked up laughing. That one was hilarious to me. So yeah, what do you think about egos and failure?
Well, I don't think, yes, Cody has failed earthly, but I think Robin and him still think that Mary's really the only one that's got the release. And like you said before, in and after, the Lord will work things out. And so he hasn't quite failed yet, because he does still technically, based on their belief system, have 3 wives, and they'll still get into heaven. And he's still got this divine marriage that he's showing the world, the other wives who haven't got those releases. And so the Lord will work it out in the end. And he might be a villain here on earth, but he will be sanctified in the afterlife.
Right.
So.
And they still really, truly do believe this. This is taught in the Mormon culture as well, that, you know, a Mormon man can, if you're a Mormon woman and you divorce your husband, legally, you are still sealed to him through the temple, and he can go out and get other wives and have them sealed to him, but you cannot go out as a woman and get another husband and have him sealed to you, two sealed together. You cannot do that. Same in the polygamous group. These men can go out and get these other women, but you as a woman cannot go get a legal divorce and then have a legal or have a sealing ended in the Mormon church either. It's very hard to get these, because these are eternal, like we've said before, these are eternal promises and eternal commitments. And so that's what I think is sad about this, is that in the temporal life, yes, Cody is a huge failure. Now, he set out to show that polygamy could work, or that, you know, he set out to show the true example of what polygamy is. And I think he succeeded, because this is what polygamy turns into more often than not, unfortunately, is it does turn into a man with a ginormous ego who thinks he's infallible and doesn't have to account to anyone but God, and then picks a favorite, spends the majority of his life and time with her and her children, abandons his other wives and abandons his other families, and then plays the victim when anyone wants equality or fairness. And so I think he's accomplished exactly what we see a good majority of people do.
And those marriages that do last past this, that it's because the wives have humbled themselves or don't demand self-respect. They hang in there till the end. That their whole goal is to hang in to the very end, or stay faithful to their covenant to the very end, and then in the afterlife they will be given those blessings. And so some marriages that hang out within the AUB or within other cultures is because those wives have humbled themselves to be a follower of their husband. So and don't demand the respect that these other women were asking to be.
Right. And not a lot of women ever reach that point of having that self-respect. And there is some shame around that. There is a lot of shame around that. And you hear Christine express that in this episode, that she does have a lot of shame around, she's embarrassed. And it is really tragic and really sad, because well, let's go back and just revisit that really quick, because I did want to point that part out. When Cody says Robin had respect for herself, and Christine didn't have respect for herself. If you look at the way that these women were raised in polygamy, if you are born and raised, it's almost like that respect is never taught. It's almost like earlier I said it was beat out of them, or it's taught out of them. Like, don't respect yourself. If you need an opinion, your husband will give you one. If you need an opinion, your priesthood holders will give you one. And so that's where I feel like Christine did get, because she was raised this way, that was deeply inbred in her. Where Mary didn't come into the religion till she was about 10 years old, I believe, something around that age. I don't know for sure. And so in her most formative years, she wasn't necessarily taught that. So she had a more solid stance of who she is as a person. Janelle was not raised this way either. She was raised in the church. So Janelle has a lot more surety of who she is as a person. And Robin, yes, was born and raised in polygamy, but not really, because her mom lived in a different city than her stepdad did. And so her bio dad, yes, had another family, but they weren't raised together in that regard. And so Robin was able to watch whatever her mother did to gain her stepfather's affection. And she was able to have a different sense of self because she went to mainstream schools. She, had life outside of the polygamous cult.
Yeah. And her goal was to become that head wife, that lead wife. Yes, she came in as the fourth wife, but she eventually worked towards that. Christine wasn't. She was happy to be the third wife. She wanted to be a third wife, so she didn't have to battle with jealousies or anything like that. And it wasn't until Robin came in, that fourth wife, and there was she was working towards being the marriage that everybody was to look up to, that all of a sudden she had to deal with jealousy. She didn't want to have to deal with those jealousies, so she was going to come in as the third wife. So,
well, and you hear Christine say that throughout the years. I hear the things Robin says to Cody, and I didn't even know we could talk to him like that. And because Christine grew up not knowing that, her father was from a polygamous family, her mother was from a polygamous family. So she didn't even know that she could say some of those things to Cody. So she just didn't. And then he treated her accordingly. He treated her like dirt beneath his feet. He didn't have any respect for her because she had no respect for herself, but she didn't know how to have respect for herself. And that is one of the things that the outside world doesn't always see. They look at these, they're like, how can you, as a woman, how do you live this way? Well, when you don't know any other way, you don't know that it's different, you can be different. And all of a sudden Christine's mind's blown because she's watching Robin say and do things to Cody that she didn't even know were possible. Then she goes, wait a second, sign me up for some of that. I want some of that. I want to be respected. I want my opinion to matter. And, we see that a lot in our families too, with our mothers and the way that our fathers treat each individual mother. And a lot of it is the energy that woman comes with. And, some women will walk into a room and they command respect just by the energy. They don't have to say anything or do anything. Other women walk into a room and it's like they're mousy, they're quiet, they're whatever. You see it with men too. You see a vibration that a man will walk into a room with, and it's like, ooh, who's that? Or, ooh, yeah, who's that? And so that's what I feel like a lot of these women from this cult have that. And it's sad because I feel, when we watch old home videos, same thing. My kids will watch it and they're like, who are you, Mom? I'm a completely different person now that I found that level of self-respect. And so as we watch these tell-alls, that's what I'm appreciating the most, is watching these women say, I don't need to put up with this anymore. I don't need to be treated like this. And then watching the tantrum from Cody saying, well, yeah, you do. You made an eternal promise. You're going to take away my toy. I don't want that toy anymore, but I want anyone else to have it either.
Yeah. I'm impressed with, we've watched old videos of ourselves, how much we have learned, how far we have come from our upbringing to the people we are now. So how unculty we have become because, but we were trained to behave a certain way. And so a lot of I joke about the arrogance of of the people but this is how we saw people growing up in our culture,
Right.
cult. So, and we have distanced ourselves and tried to become different people than the way we were trained. So,
and these men are not used to these women saying, sorry, we're not compatible anymore. Sorry, I don't want to do this anymore. Treat me with more respect. Treat me with the way that you're treating her, or I'm out. They're not used to that, and they're not used to being able to have those releases be granted. So the fact that Mary was able to get one is amazing to me. Awesome. I love it. I love that the other women appreciate that. I really wish that and hope for them that they will go seek their own too. No, they will not just be granted one. They have to go and ask for one. That is just part of the rules that the church has. I was really disappointed in this episode with the way that Robin just fell between the cracks, hardly answered any of the questions, didn't say very much. I think she had this stupid, snotty little smirk on her face that was, I think she's cruel. I think she's almost more cruel than Cody is. And I think she's a lot more calculated than Cody is.
Yeah.
And
that's why Cody's being more of a villain, just like Janelle said, to protect her. So.
Right. So we'll make a couple smaller videos to go around some of these topics that we've been talking about that maybe we could dive into a little bit more. Because I know our recap of the episode goes longer than the actual episode. Some people have complained about that, but it's just because we're trying to, what we see, we're trying to explain the whys behind that. So sometimes, and then we like to talk. So.
Well, and I'm excited to see the next episode too, because Christine says in here that their love story from the very, very, very beginning. And my perspective on that is their love story when they got married, when they got engaged, and what went on behind that, because they have let things now know that emotionally they connected with a lightning bolt in church, probably based on the belief system that they grew up with was not appropriate, but it was okay for Cody to do that because it's okay for him to be searching for other wives, where it's not okay for other wives to have that kind of inappropriate. But he didn't know if she was married at that time. So
right, because they're always in dating mode. These men are in dating mode 24/7. So their behavior is acceptable. It's not okay for a woman to have conversations on the phone with a man. It's inappropriate. So let us know what you guys think in the comments below. Let us know if you have any questions or anything that you want us to go into a little bit deeper that we can make separate videos on. We'd be happy to do that too. I'm excited to see what the next couple of they say tell all, but really it kind of doesn't feel like a tell all. It feels like they're, and especially where we're getting Cody screaming and talking over the host, and we're not getting Robin answering any questions. I'll just refuse to answer that, or they just don't show it. They don't even show the host asking her the question. So those have been a little bit disappointing. I kind of expected a little bit better than that, but here we are nonetheless. So,
and 3 of the wives being accountable and cringing about stuff that they've done in the past.
And these wives are absolutely correct. In this polygamous world, if a man loses 3 wives, he's the common denominator. He's the one. It's his fault. There's just no way around it. He's the common denominator. 3 people left him. He is the failure at polygamy. I 100% think these women would have stayed with him had he had lived this lifestyle the way he claimed that he was born and bred to do at the very beginning of this series. What?
Set aside to do.
Yeah, that he was one of the Lord's anointed in order to live. If he would have truly lived this religion, then I think these women would have absolutely stayed with him. He's the common factor. He's the common denominator. It is his fault that these relationships did not last. And if that's him taking interference and taking the fall for Robin, so be it. He still is the one that's accountable for it. So let us know what you guys think in the comments. Again, do your healing work. If you haven't started now, obviously you can tell this one pushed some buttons for us. So it enraged us a little bit, got a little bit of anger going on there. So let us know what you guys think. Do your healing work, and we will see you on the next episode.
Robin and I did not cry at all during this episode, which is great.
That's true. I was going to point that out. Robin did not cry at all in this episode. Hilarious. Okay.
Right, thanks, guys.